enshrined in our Constitution, the second most important right is the right to keep and bear arms. Apparently it's one that Doug Jones doesn't believe is a right because he wants this gigantic laundry list of restrictions on it. Is there any other right that Doug Jones thinks that there should be all these different laws restricting who is allowed to have the right and who isn't?
Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. Only on News Radio 1440 and newsradio1440.com. The world has forgotten how to argue with one another without getting offended or trying to shut the other person up. As a national debate finalist, gospel minister, parliamentarian, and communications degree holder, Caleb is no stranger to arguments. And he brings that experience to the airwaves. Listen to Tactics, only on News Radio 1440 and newsradio1440.com. Depend on it. News Radio 1440, Tactics with Caleb Colquitt.
Because when you answer to a higher power, when you answer to God and you don't answer to a worldly authority, when you're far more afraid of doing something that God wouldn't want you to do than you are of what Vladimir Putin or Joseph Stalin or Hugo Chavez or insert name of dictator here, when you're way more afraid of offending God than you are of him, then you're going to do what God wants and not what the dictator wants, and that scares the mess out of them. That's why they persecute them. They're afraid of you, and they should be. Remember that.
Tactics with Caleb Colquitt, only on News Radio 1440 and newsradio1440.com.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Compromise where you can. Where you can't, don't. Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right. Even if the whole world is telling you to move. It is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye and say no. You move.
Never step onto the battlefield of ideas unprepared. Before you enter the fray, you need a plan. And there's no better place to get one than right here on Tactics with host Caleb Colquitt. The Situation Room goes live now on News Radio 1440.
Becky Garrettson, the Executive Director of Eagle Forum of Alabama. I want to welcome all of you to our first live stream of 2021. So please forgive us if we have any little mistakes along the way. I'm a little bit out of practice, but I'm so glad that you're with us. I want to thank Caleb Colquitt from Tactics Radio for allowing us to use his studio as well as doing all the technical work on the backside of this. So thank you so much, Caleb, for everything that you're doing. We really appreciate that. Today,
I was going to say, it's always my pleasure to help you out. Eagle Forum's been really good to me. We've done a lot of work together, and so just my way to say thanks. So hope you guys enjoyed the program.
Well, thank you, Caleb. One of the great things that Caleb did for us last year during the legislative session is every week I would get on with Caleb. We would get on the airways and explain what happened that week at the State House and what bills to be watching and what things you needed to look out for. So we hope to do that again this year, have some kind of podcast going where people can interact with us on a weekly basis about what's happening at the State House, because our legislative session will be starting up here in just a couple of weeks. I am so excited to present a wonderful guest with us who's with us today. Curtis Bowers is a husband, a father of 9 children, 4 grandchildren. He has been studying Marxism for over 3 decades, since you were about 12 years old, right? And he was a state representative in Idaho. He now lives in Troy, Alabama. And how I first met Curtis was watching Agenda. He was the creator and author of the movie Agenda, Grinding America Down, and Agenda 2, The Enemies Within. These are must-watch films for every American in this country, I believe. If you want to understand the Marxist march that has been going on for the last 70 or 80 years, Curtis has a wonderful talent of being able to break down in simple terms what is happening, and your videos, you have they're fun to watch. They're quick. You have a lot of great video and a lot of great interviews. It's not a snoozer. It is really good, and it's really great videos to watch for your kids, with your kids. So we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end, but I I want to tell you, Curtis, not only did we find out just a few minutes ago, we were at the same college. My freshman year of college was Colorado Christian College. At the time, it's now Colorado Christian University. And you were there, Curtis, we were there in the fall at the same year. And now we're circling back. You've been a guest of ours many times when I was running the Tea Party. Yeah. And you've done some Skyping kind of things with us. And I have to tell you, of all the researchers, you and Trevor Loudon are my favorites. Brandon House is up there too. For my understanding of Marxism and communism. I use your resources all the time. And you have taught me so much, and not only are you a great teacher, but I consider you a friend. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
You are welcome. Happy to be here.
You have a new podcast that you I should say vlog, actually, that you started a few months back called Agenda Weekly. And I am part of, I watch that every week. I love it. It's a great learning tool. But I noticed this week you did a wonderful update from Washington, D.C., and that's why I wanted you on tonight, was to give us a firsthand account of what you saw and what is happening. How is this? Is this a Marxist move? Is this a Marxist revolution? I wanted to get your take on that. But I want to ask you, first of all, why did you go to Washington, D.C. this last week?
Well, I went to Washington, D.C. The same reason why 99.99% of the people were there, because their president asked them to be there. I was walking away at the end, and there was a big black guy with me. We were talking, and he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Alabama." And I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Southern California." I go, "That's a long way to come." He said, "Yeah, but my president asked me to come." And I thought, that's why I'm here. He asked me to come. And I felt I need to do this to support him in what he is doing and has done for our country. So that's why everyone was there. And it was crystal clear that's why they were there. And so, but it was... The rally in the morning was so amazing. We got there about 5 hours early, as most people did. There was well over 1 million people there, waving their flags, singing "God Bless the USA." And then as Trump came out to speak, after we've been standing bumper to bumper with each other, I could, just to show you the density, because it was different than anything I've ever been to, just where I was standing, without moving, I could touch 28 people. That's how dense the crowd was. It was unbelievable. And we had to stand like that. I dropped a water bottle, could not pick it up. That's how close it was. For 5 hours we stood like that, waiting to hear our president.
In the cold.
In the freezing cold. It was windy too.
Maybe it was good you had so many people near you.
No, that did help. But the flags were flying. There was probably at least 100,000 people that had brought flags with them there. Trump flags, all the different ones, "Don't Tread on Me," and American flags. And when he started speaking, I actually kind of left where I was, closer to the front, because I wanted to walk through the crowd and see how they reacted to what and he spoke for over an hour, even though it was freezing cold. He was just in his suit. I mean, it was cold. I had 3 layers on with a big winter coat, and I was just cold, and he just stayed out there. I was like, it showed a couple of key things, how much he loves the American people. It was just overwhelming. And then the reciprocal, as I watched around, I was watching people's faces more than him to see their reaction. I walked all around the Washington Monument, all during his talk, just looking at people and the love they had for him. It was just so neat to see. I'm like, when have we had a president that the people love? I mean, they really love. And he, in return, really loves them. It's not a show to get votes. It's not, and you could tell that. It was just, anyway, that's why we were there. And it was just a piece of American history. But it was a blessing to be there.
Well, in your weekly vlog that you had last week, you had a clip, about a 4-minute clip, right there at the end of the day, and you sort of gave a synopsis. So Caleb's going to pull that up, and we were not able to access your video earlier. It was taken down from YouTube, but I think you did that on purpose so that they wouldn't take everything down. So we're going to do a share screen, but I want everyone to watch. Again, this is right when it was all happening, or had just maybe kind of finished, and this is your take on the day. And Caleb, okay. And we may not be able to hear that, but you can, right?
Today's been a wonderful day. The amount of people that showed up for the Trump rally was amazing. Just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands. I walked all around by the Washington Monument, looked, surveying the crowd, and I'll show you some pictures of that. That was up by Trump when he was speaking, and just been all over. But as we all came to the Capitol, the police started tear gassing some of the protesters, and of course they don't do that to the Black Lives Matter people or the Antifa people. And some conflict broke out. They sent in like stormtroopers. Lots of police were just coming in a little bit ago, just whole squads of them coming in, and they're trying to stir up conflict. You can see it crystal clear, and you can see that what's happened to our Capitol is there's no more respect for the American people. The people inside the building that will refuse to listen. Even Mike Pence, unfortunately, just a complete coward, a pathetic man who's not a leader, and he's showing his true colors in there right now by not standing up for anything. We're at a real crossroads in our country right now. It's crystal clear. I feel in my heart this was the last peaceful protest in our lifetime. I think now when it happens again, I think it's not going to be peaceful anymore. And because they realize what's happening. Our country, the communists have taken over the Democratic Party and are now getting control of our country, and they know what's happening. They know they are going to create tyranny over us, and people are saying no because they see what's happening. They know their children are going to be slaves, and they're not going to put up with that. They're going to stand like they should stand, like we all should stand. Thomas Jefferson said, when the government fears the people, and I hope they're getting a little of that right now, I hope there's some fear, but when that happens, there's liberty. But when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. And that's what the stage we are entering right now in American history. It's so sad to see, but I was encouraged at the numbers of people here and just the drive of them. They're ready to go to battle, if necessary, for their country, because they know how important this is. And so many Chinese people here with signs about getting rid of the communist CCP, the Communist Chinese Party. And so people are awake, which is good. We're not alone, which is good. But I'm afraid that the price we're going to have to pay is more than we wanted to pay. I feel like they're not going to listen to protests. They're not going to listen to numbers of people. They're not going to listen to us saying, please, would you investigate this election? Would you listen to us? They could care less anymore. And if they get right now the House and steal the Senate, like it looks like they did yesterday in Georgia, and get Biden in there in a fraudulent election, tyranny is coming. And we've got to stand because the price is too great not to, for our children and our grandchildren. So I'll talk more about this when I get back, but it's been a very sobering day, and but I've been encouraged that people are at the point of, yep, I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to stay free in my country.
Wow, good thoughts. Not good, I mean, good synopsis. One of the things I want to back up, I know there are some people watching who really watch mainstream media all the time, and so a lot of them have heard all this information about voter fraud, that there is none. And I think you went up to support your president, but it's because you felt like he won the election and it was stolen from him. And everyone that I know that went, that is why they went. Because we do have evidence. It just has not been heard by the courts yet. What was so important about this day is that momentum was building with the Republican legislators. We had over 130 legislators that were going to be testifying in person, on TV. The whole world was watching, and they were going to be bringing out these pieces of evidence. There's been a media blackout on all of this election fraud that is well documented, not only from data, but sworn affidavits that, people will go to jail if they were lying. I mean, we have real evidence of things happening. And momentum was building, the tide was turning, and the whole world was going to get to hear this. It was critical that they shut it down. So Curtis, as you were walking from the rally to the Capitol, what were you noticing? What was the feeling that came over you?
Well, a lot of key things. One, when we got to the Capitol, and I've been there many, many times, 20 plus times in my life, there's normally high security. You can't go walk up in there. You can't. There's police everywhere, even when they're not in session. But of course, this was a joint session of Congress with the Vice President. So the entire government of the United States is in that building, and there was no security. In fact, I was trying to step over some barricades to get onto the sidewalk, because normally I was yelled at once years ago, and I tried to take a picture when I stepped onto the grass of the Capitol, and I got just screamed at, "Get off the grass." So, and the police said, no, go. I go, "How do we get up there?" He goes, "Just walk through the grass." So they were forcing us, I mean, thousands of people, to go right up to the building and around it in the grass, which I thought, that's so weird. What are they doing? And then I saw people just walking up into the Capitol. The media wants you to believe they were forcing their way in. They were just rebellious people. They weren't. Now, the stuff you see on the news where, yeah, but they were doing stuff. They were doing stuff, but we were not doing stuff. There was over 1 million people there. And of course, as anything like this goes, and they knew it was such a key day, like you said, they knew the evidence was coming out. Of course, they infiltrated and subverted from within, because that's what communists always do. Vladimir Lenin himself, the founder of the Soviet Union, said, "The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves." So you always infiltrate and subvert from within. That's what happened. I saw, with my own eyes, the windows they talk about being broken in the Capitol. It was Antifa members. They had the black helmets with the black scarves, and our guys were tackling them off of the windows to stop it, because they had hammers. They were busting through the windows, and there's videos of that on the internet you can watch. So it's not, but the media doesn't show you that. And so then, right then you go, okay, so they have an agenda. Because when you don't present all the facts, you're selective in what you show. You're trying to get a narrative going, which of course they were, because they have to remove Trump from office. So did some things happen that you saw videos? Yes. But that was 99% instigated by Antifa, by Black Lives Matter, by radical Democrats. The Democratic Party now is Marxist. And Marxists get what they want through only one means: world revolution. Okay, I've been reading Marxist books, their books, for 40 years, and that's how they do it. And the Weather Underground in the 60s and 70s, the Democratic Socialists of America, the Students for a Democratic Society. A lot of you don't realize this, but you need to understand this because we're ignorant on our history. Just in 1971, okay, the Weather Underground, Students for a Democratic Society, and the Communist Party USA, guess how many buildings they bombed in America in just that one 12-month period? 1,900. Almost 5 a day buildings every day of 1971. This is nothing new. They tried for revolution back then. It did not work. Do you know why it did not work? Because there was too much Christian fiber in our country. People weren't going to just start spontaneously destroying, burning, looting. They weren't going to do that. So they went into the institutions of influence, education, media, entertainment, Hollywood, to change us as a people from within. That's what my movies are about. But that's what we saw. Now they realize we've had another 50 years to raise the children. I think we're ready for a revolution, and we found out this summer.
And they're in government.
That's
they're more infiltrated than our government.
Well, they have taken over the Democratic Party. So
Exactly.
One of the two parties is completely controlled by them. If you go to the Communist Party USA website, and you look at all their agenda items on there, you'll see it's the exact agenda items of the Democratic Party. And then, unfortunately, the establishment part of the Republican Party has been taken over also. So we have to be honest about that. And that's why Trump was hated by both sides, but he was so popular, the Republicans kind of had to act like they liked him a little bit, some of them, because they realize he is so popular. If we want to get reelected, we can't act like we're against him. But now they think he's getting thrown out. We're seeing what their true colors are. Get that guy out of here, because he was exposing them for the frauds that they are. He was wanting to do something for our country. They love talking about doing something for our country. So that's what. But it was crystal clear that violence. Were there a few Trump supporters with him? Probably. people drinking, whatever. A crowd stirs people up to do things they would not normally do. That's not why we have to be careful, our company, and for whoever we are. So yes, I'm sure a few of the Trump people got out of control, but it was not started by them.
And I don't think they were the violent ones either.
No.
When you saw them walking, they had videos of people in the Capitol. They're walking through the rope line. They're in the rope line. No statues were burned, defaced or pictures.
Because we love those statues.
Exactly, we revere
the Trump people love our country. We love our history. We love our Capitol, and the history in there and stuff.
I think they might just in awe. They got caught up in the doors are open
But it's key. Yeah, it was open, so they went in. I say jokingly on my video, but it was true. If I would have been younger, I think I would have run right in there to get a great selfie in Nancy Pelosi's seat, and maybe that wouldn't have been a wise thing to do. But I would have had no heart of anything except, wow, this is a unique opportunity. This is my Capitol, and they let us in. Let's get a picture. I wouldn't have, of course, wanted to hurt anything in there or destroy or steal or any of that. So that is, but again, what they're presenting is that like the purpose of it was destruction. If the purpose of it was destruction and you had 1 million people there, the Capitol would be gone. It wouldn't be there any longer. But here's the disturbing thing, how I know it was a setup. I know it was purposeful. I know they set it up purposely without the police there they normally have, without the things like it normally are there for security. They were hoping we would come in and we would do something drastic or horrible, and so they'd really have some ammo. That didn't happen. The only thing that happened is an innocent, sweet lady was shot and killed, and she was unarmed in the Capitol, a veteran of the Air Force. That's the only person that died in what happened. They say 5 people. It is a total lie. 3 people had a heart attack on our side.
Someone fell off the wall. I think someone fell to their death, fell 50 feet or something.
But it was not, no one was killing people. They said 5 were killed. That is a totally and the police died also of health condition. It had nothing to do, if you read the police report, it had nothing to do with injuries sustained. He wasn't even at the hospital. You would be at the hospital if you had serious injuries. He was back at the police station and probably had a heart attack also. It said health condition, whatever that is.
And I think the latest I saw on that, it is under investigation, and they are considering it a homicide. So let's lay that one aside.
But if you look at the CNN, 5 were killed as if the rioters did that.
Yeah.
It was them. 4 of the people for sure that died were there to stand up for what they believe in. It was not...
and I just want to make clear, so do you condone the violence that took place? Or the
no, and we see... No, and again, 99% of that was the other side infiltrating and doing that. And the people on our side that did that, it was stupid. Look what they did. Look what they've cost us, because now it's been able to be used to gain so much ground for the other side. So that's, but that was not the heart. There was only about a couple hundred people that even got into the Capitol, total. Okay, so I'm telling you, of a crowd of 1 million people, if 200 people went in, that is 0.0002% of the people even went in. And I think half of those went in for fun, thinking, oh, this is a unique opportunity, and then probably half went in with bad intentions. But of those, the majority were against us. They were wanting they were wanting what happened to happen, exactly what happened. That was their goal, and it was clear. Again, I was there and I saw them, but there's videos too you can watch on YouTube where you see, oh my goodness, a lot of the destruction was purposefully the other side, and we were trying to stop them. There's some videos, and I saw some of this too, where our side was pushing people away from the police that were trying to hurt the police. We were like we were protecting the police because we love the police. We love them. And we're not against the police. So the whole thing was just chaos, which they love to create, because in chaos, you can just get the narrative, especially when you control media, you can present the narrative however you want it to be, and they knew that, and so they said, just get it stirred up, and we will tell the story the way we want to tell it.
One of the things I think is so interesting, when you look at the people that were on the steps, and there were a lot of people up on the steps, and like you said, there were no barriers there. By the time, most of the crowd gets there, if you've never been to D.C., you've never been to the Capitol, you don't realize you're not supposed to go up on the steps. Like, the barriers were gone, people were up there. And you look at people up there, and they're taking selfies, they're waving their flags. They were not violent people that were up there. They were excited to be there to say, this is our house. Listen to us, we're here. And it wasn't a nasty, violent thing. But I would say, we both agree, any violence against a police officer, any breaking in, I have no problem with those people being prosecuted. It was wrong and that shouldn't have happened. But that was not what this movement was about. This was not all this about the president telling people to come, and that is just a false narrative as well. But let's go on. So the security was one thing that you noticed. It's a Marxist plan. Now that the news cycle, when you left that day and you gave your little report on video, we are a week out and it has been 24/7. Is this part of the Marxist plan?
Yeah, it's a week out, and now they're able to reform the narrative into it's so hardcore. We see even all of our side defecting, a lot of them, because they're making it look like the whole thing was a violent assault on the Capitol, and that's a total lie. It's just a lie. Was there some people that did? Yes, we talked about that, but that wasn't a 1/10,000th of 1%. So that's not what it was. So for them to reframe it like that, again, if 1 million people had bad intentions, the Capitol would not be standing anymore. Clearly. And it was not that. All the photos of outside, those aren't shown anymore. It's just the inside, the few 20, 30 radicals running around destroying things. So it's sad, but they're turning this to try to use this as they always do. They don't waste anything, to get as much ground as they can.
Yes.
in pushing their agenda to continue to strip us of our freedoms, to silence free speech, and to change America as we know it.
Well, and this is one point to I'm gonna ask Caleb to jump in here. You want to say something, and then I have something from that point, something we can do to push back on that. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, one thing that I was going to bring up too, Curtis, to your point, we actually had an interview on this show. Shanna Chambly, who's a mutual friend of ours, she actually came on and interviewed, and she was in Washington, and she said that she was there for a different reason. She wasn't there for the rally, and she and her family of 5 were in there. She said they never felt unsafe. There was never like a security risk or anything, and if they didn't see the news footage, they wouldn't have even known that anything had happened. So yes, it's a big deal. Yes, it's really important, but at the same time, it's not like, this was a city set on siege that they took over like a city block for 6 weeks, like the Chaz. And so that's a completely different thing there.
Right.
Yes, and we on the outside didn't know some of the bad.
Yeah.
We didn't know that was when I was shooting that video right there. You watch. I did not know there was anything like. I knew some people had gone in, but we assumed we didn't know something bad was going on in there. All the people around were just waving their flags, and it was not.
There was a lot of praying, singing.
Yes, they were singing hymns on the steps, and no one had said not to go on the steps. So of course they were all on the steps because it was fun being up there. But they were not destroying anything. They had nothing but a heart of love for their country. That was it. And we didn't know. Okay, some radicals have gotten inside. We knew there was some on the outside. We saw trying to break the windows. But I didn't know some had gotten inside and broken some windows and stuff in there. We didn't know that was going on when we were outside there.
So one thing right now, off the bat, that I think is important to do, this is what I've done, is I am noticing just one day out after this, people on our side are carrying the same narrative now. So I want to tell you, if you do not call it an attack on the Capitol, it was not an attack on the Capitol. That is their narrative. And using the word siege, it was not a siege on the Capitol. So I think it's important that we speak truth and do not carry that.
No, yeah, it was a rally at the Capitol where a few bad players did some bad things. But that's not, it's not this last summer we saw rallies where everybody is breaking windows, looting, burning buildings to the ground. Over 200 police officers were seriously injured, many of them killed. It was none of that.
And they were egged on. They were told by the left in government, these representatives who are now trying to slap us in the face, they were saying they should go out and protest. They should do these things. There's nothing wrong with it. And now all of a sudden they're singing hymns on the Capitol, and it's,
right.
I noticed a headline today my daughter had posted that AOC had posted that half of the House almost died on Wednesday. That's the rhetoric that she is saying. Half of the House almost died on Wednesday. So please turn off the mainstream media. Turn it off, because we're perpetuating the false narrative, and this is leading to a takeover. It's very important that we try to stop this within our own circles. And
didn't AOC support Bernie Sanders, who had a campaign worker that literally tried to murder a tenth of Congress? I seem to remember that happening.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things, Curtis, you've always said, is the Marxists accuse the others of the exact thing that they do.
Yes.
So that's the cue. When they start accusing you of something, you just turn
know
right around.
Yet you know they're doing it. Like in November of 2016, when Trump was elected, the day after the election, they started accusing him of the Russian collusion. Well, I knew, because I studied Marxism so long, I go, that means Hillary was in with the Russians. I knew it instantly that day. I told people, one, because I knew they would want Hillary to be in there, someone that's going to dismantle our military, continue to do what Obama had done. But I already knew whenever they go after you for something, it's the exact thing they're doing. So they're going after us for violence and insurrection. No, that's what they're doing. They called it a coup at the Capitol. Who's been trying to do a coup for the last 4 years? So it's always that. So Marxist strategy is accuse your enemy of doing what you are doing. So it gives you the upper hand, like you're on the moral high ground, and they're the ones that are being investigated. So they won't be investigating you, and on and on. So, but that's what they do, and it's. But it's sad that our side is buying into the narrative so quickly, because we're so fearful. And I just want you to know 99.999% of the people there are just like you. And they love this country, and they wanted to be there to support their president, and that's all that was going on. And they were hoping, I hope the representatives look out the windows as they see all of us out there, they'll realize we do care about this issue, and we should hear the testimony, and we should consider what's going on. That's what all the people there, that's what their heart was. And hoping, and we knew we were there for so many people that couldn't go, because they couldn't get off work or whatever. So we were there for the American people to stand in the gap.
So this is sort of a twofold question. What is their purpose? Why are they doing what they're doing? And what can we expect to come in the future?
You can expect it to really accelerate. And that's why we need to be informed. We need to be educating others one at a time about what's going on, bringing people up to speed, finding good sources of real information, so that we're not sitting there wondering what's going on. They love to create confusion. They want you to feel at home. Well, I don't know what's going on. At best, I mean, you're just, I don't know, because you're not going to do anything when you don't know what's going on. But here is what they're going to do. If they're able to get Biden in there on the 20th, nothing else changes that, and they have the House and the Senate, you will see in their first 100 days, they will do more things to limit our freedom, to undermine our country, to put us further into debt, and to create more programs and big government initiatives than they've done in the last 100 years. Because they know now they can't take the chance of having what happened in 2016 ever happen again. We cannot lose control of power. They don't mind when they have the George W's in there or the George Bush seniors, because they know they'll go along with whatever. They'll just label it in patriotic terms, and we'll all be dumb enough to go, oh yeah, the Patriot Act. Well, I know it's erasing our constitutional liberties, but it's for our country, and I'm a patriot, so I'm going to go for that. Well, guess what? The Patriot Act is going to be used on you now. Okay, if you're standing up, all of a sudden your rights are gone, because what did they even call us at the Capitol? Those of us peacefully there wearing flags. They're saying now domestic terrorist. Well, the Patriot Act from George W. Bush gave them the authority when someone is defined as a terrorist. They didn't define that term to be specific on who they're talking about. They don't have any more constitutional rights. They can be arrested, never charged, and held indefinitely. Okay, that's just a fact. So they're going to use those powers. Those powers that our Republicans put in place, they will be using that. What's going on with Google and Apple, you're going to see the censorship just start rippling through everything, because they've presented the narrative now with this event. If you believe like Trump, if you're a conservative, you do not have a right to free speech, because your words end in violence. Trump did nothing that day. I want to make this crystal clear. And any of you that care to know the truth, all you have to do is go watch his speech, the entirety of it at the rally. It was nothing except patriotic, and peaceful, and encouraging, and he's going to stand for us. It was nothing. He didn't instigate anything. Okay?
And I've never heard him instigate anything. He loves this country
yes.
and loves the American people.
That's right.
Curtis, there's a couple of things I know that are going to happen right off the bat with Biden is he wants 100 days of mask wearing. And you're already hearing today on the news, the Democrats are now, that are getting COVID, it's all because of these people that came to Washington and weren't wearing masks. So now we're going to be killers because we didn't wear masks, those that were up there. But so do we push back on that? And this whole more lockdowns. They want to keep us apart. This is the time where we can't communicate. They don't want us to meet in person. They do not want us to organize whatsoever. This rally will be used to nationalize the police force. They'll be able to use it in several different ways, but they'll be able to say that they weren't able to call in quick enough. They need the government now to be taking over these smaller. I'm not saying this is going to happen in the first 100 days, but this is on the agenda. One thing that's going to happen very quickly, which Eagle Forum will be pushing back on, is they want to make Washington, D.C. a state. Quickly, and they're going to use this event that took place there as one of their, and it's going to help propel them to where they want to go.
Yes, and I think also Nancy Pelosi, I believe it was, talking about just the last few days, they also want to nationalize elections.
Yes.
Oh, so there's no more fraud.
And get rid of the
We're going to
Electoral
take
College.
over the elections. The states will have no
Yes.
more control over the elections. It will be the federal government doing that.
So H.R. 1 is a 700-plus page bill. H.R. 1, it's the first bill, and it is loaded with all the things that we saw with the voter fraud. It will cement those things into law. So, of course, we're going to be pushing back, but this is so difficult when you have the House, the Senate, and the President. They're all going to be voting for this. So we've got a lot of heavy lifting to do for all of this. Caleb, let me just stop and ask you, do we have any chats going on, any questions from the outside as we're going to kind of hit our last issues here? Is there anything that I need to...
Right now, there are no chats, which is surprising because we've got well over 100 viewers.
Okay.
So we know you're watching. Give us a comment, and we'll
Okay.
see if we can ask
That's
the
great.
question to Curtis.
Well, I kind of, I really like to respect everyone's time, and I know people are just, they're busy and they're watching all sorts of things, so we thank you so much for your time. But Curtis, what are things, I feel overwhelmed at times. Thank God I know the Lord, and without that, I don't know how people get through this without feeling like they want to hyperventilate. What are some of the things that you have thought of that we can do to push back on this?
Well, first of all, if you are a Christian, you need to be praying for your country. You need to be praying for discernment and wisdom. You need to be sharing the good news with your friends and neighbors. Because when everyone's in fear, it's a great time to share the gospel. Because all of a sudden they're wanting hope. And we do have hope. Mm-hmm. If this thing goes south and it never returns, I have hope. I know where I'm going. I know if I'm in a prison cell, Jesus is going to be right there with me. And I'll have a prison ministry going then. So I'm not worrying about those things. So we have to be those that are Christians, and some of you that aren't, I just want you to know the reason the principles you believe are true, the conservative principles, is because they're biblical principles. That's why it's truth, and that's why you are on the right side. But Jesus is what puts the whole package together. But we need to, when we see the federal government going away from us, maybe never to return, because if they've gotten control of elections, that's normally our solution. But like, hey, if they don't fix election fraud, how are we ever supposed to get someone in there? Then we need to start fighting for our states. Mm-hmm. Individually. The state of Alabama here, probably most people listening are from Alabama. This is a wonderful state. We looked over all 50 states of America. My family and I, 4 years ago, chose to move here because there's enough Christianity and enough conservative values to make it a solid state. We need to work for a good governor, and all the representatives and all the senators be on the same page. And I believe the movement I want to try to get going is this: we need to, in the good states, work to make them sanctuary states. Sanctuaries for the Second Amendment, sanctuaries for life, sanctuaries for ignoring
freedom.
federal mandates. No, we're a sanctuary city for that, or state for that. Sorry, we're not interested. Well, we're not getting into the government programs. We're pulling ourselves away from them, as we have a right to do. We are sovereign states, and we are making these states so solid on their own. When they pass radical stuff up there, we just simply say, I'm sorry, we're a sanctuary state against that particular thing, so we're not going to be able to do that. The left has already done that on so many areas and got away with it. We need to do the same and say, no, you're overstepping your bounds when you come into our state and tell us how we have to do something. But that's what I think we need to work toward. At the state level, the local level, get to know your sheriff, get to know your local police, be supportive of them, and let them know you're behind them, because we need to keep them independent and free from federal government interference. And but the way we make a difference is one person at a time.
Yes.
It's the whole key.
Start with your family.
That's right. But all you that are part of Eagle Forum out there, all over Alabama, you could have little study groups in your home, with going through good books together, watching good documentaries like Agenda and other ones, and slowly, just a group of people at a time, educate them, inspire them, and encourage them to stand for what is right. That's what we have to do. There's no top-down solutions coming. It's not happening. It never does. And so we need to work at the local level to make an impact. And then lastly, before you finish up, we have to do everything we can do to keep the hearts of our children and grandchildren and their minds with the truth. We can't keep giving our children to the other side and thinking everything's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. We have to teach them why America was the greatest country ever, the principles that made it that way, and the type of people we need to be to make that be obvious to other people. And we've just got a lot of work to do, but we want to keep our own families on our side, and we haven't been doing that for 50 years, and that's why they have so many people on their side, and we need to say no to that.
Well, I echo you on those things, and when you talk about Eagle Forum, when we're finished, you can go to our homepage and become a member and sign up for our emails, because tomorrow I'm going to have an email that goes out that will have this video. Right, Caleb? Okay.
Yes.
We'll have this video, but I'll also have some key points on things that you can do. And Eagle Forum has always been very involved in the state legislature, and we do a Legislature 101 at the beginning of the year. We show you how to use the website there at the State House so you can track legislation. We actually write some bills and have some legislators that sponsor those bills for us. We track things. So we really want you to be part of this. And then once the session starts, every week I give an update so you can tune in and see what you're missing. Those phone calls that you make to legislators really do make a difference. So we need you. We need you to be part of Eagle Forum. We need you to help fight this very important battle. Caleb.
Yeah, we actually do have a question if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to this question. This comes via John from Facebook. And he asked, what do you predict will happen in Biden's administration in the first 100 days with policies with illegal aliens, the environment, education, and the economy? So,
wow.
Yeah, a lot of topics to cover there.
In 1 minute, no.
Well, they want to legalize all illegals and get them where they're on a track to citizenship. That's votes. I mean, it's all votes. So they want to secure things over that first 100 days, and definitely the next 2 years before another election, where they can't lose again. It's impossible. So they will be doing everything possible they'll have lockdowns, not to help us stay healthy, but to impoverish people, destroy small business, and so that more people are dependent on the government. They want as many people as possible on the leash of the federal government. So they're very likely to rise up and say, well, you don't want this because you're dependent on them. So they want to get votes and lock in votes for the long term. But there's the Equality Act. He said
H.R. 1.
Yeah, promises to do that in the first 100 days. And that changes. We no longer have freedom of religion with that. We no longer have freedom of conscience with that. We no longer have freedom of so many things, because they're redefining how everyone has to operate and what we all have to believe, even if we don't believe it. And so we're losing our freedoms rapidly already, but it's going to accelerate incredibly, I believe.
Yes, it is, and we need to be vigilant. You were talking about setting up small groups, and that is one of the things that we suggest from Eagle Forum. Even this weekend, my husband teaches a Sunday school class, and we were talking about the Bible and all these different things, but they said, we want to meet again tonight. So our Sunday school class is now going to start a small group, and what we have done is we're sharing phone numbers with each other. We are starting to make an emergency plan that when all communication goes dark, we have maps to each other's houses, we have code words, we know how to get in touch with each other. And we will be helping you set up small groups. So if you would like to set up a small group, it doesn't have to be anything coordinated. I mean, anything real elaborate. We want to help you and provide resources for you to be able to bring your friends in and watch the agenda movie. That's a great way to start. We're going to start meeting monthly online, and we'd love for you to join us. And our first meeting after this live stream is going to be Phyllis Schlafly did a really great, just 23-minute primer on the Constitution. It's fantastic. It is a great starting point, and we're going to start having those kinds of things. So we want you to be involved, but people need to re-educate themselves. If it's been 30 years since you had civics, and maybe you don't remember some of this stuff. If we're going to defend these principles, we need to know what they are, and we want to help equip you with that. I also would encourage you to sign up for Curtis's weekly podcasts at agendaweekly.com. They also were playing on YouTube, but I think you've moved everything over to your website. It's $5 a month to get these amazing resources. And did you brought your books? You have. There are a couple of things that he sells on his website. Agenda the movie.
Yeah, these are the movies that if you haven't seen them, or if you haven't seen them in a long time, they just give you the big picture, so everything starts to make more sense. And then Agenda 2, Masters of Deceit, is a follow-up of more about what's going on right now in our country through the issues, like how the environmental movement is being used, not to help the environment, which we're all for. It's for to get government control and to destroy worldwide capitalism. There's one of the books on our site. My father wrote this. He's 87, and he sold tens of thousands of these. It's called The Naked Truth. It goes through the 45 current communist goals from the 1950s, but it shows how each one of them was accomplished. So it's a history of the last 50, 60 years in a way you can see. You've lived through most of this, and you'll go, oh, I remember when that happened, but you won't realize, oh, it was a part of checking off goals on their list that they had 60 years ago to take us down from within. I know it's sobering. If you haven't heard this stuff, it sounds crazy, but it's purposeful. I just want you to know that. You know there's been change. You know it's been dramatic. You know what's going on. That's what's going on. Years ago, that's what I dug in to find out, and I found out it's the Marxists. It's unbelievably, I was shocked, but they are so organized and so committed and so purposeful in seeking positions of influence so they can change people from within their beliefs, like what they're doing to our children in the schools. That's why they've been so successful, and it's taken them a long time. Started about in the 1930s in earnest. So it's been 90 years they've actively been working to subvert us from within. But these type of resources are great for you, but then once you've read them, hey, Bill, why don't you read this? And it helps wake people up, because when you see it, you go, oh my goodness, I knew something was going on.
Or you do it as a book club. If they shut your business down or they make us all go back in our homes, guess what? We have a lot of studying we can do. We have some great resources. I think we have one more question. Caleb.
Yeah, we've got one more, and this one comes from Carol Flights, and this is going to be via YouTube. So she asked, on social media, the left/Dems are now ostracizing Christians, conservatives, Trump supporters, and saying that we're a danger to society and we need to possibly be in education camps. How do we stand against this?
That sounds crazy, but that's where it's going. I mean, that's why we have to stand up. This stuff started in Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union long ago, and people thought, oh, it's just talk, it's not that big a deal. Some people were smart enough to go, we need to get out of here, and some weren't smart enough, and they ended up paying the price. But we in America have no other place to go. And that's why we have to stand, and we have to stand for the truth. And when people say stuff like that, that foolish radical stuff. We have to turn it around with information so we can show them they're the ones that are radicals and they're the ones that are trying to destroy our country. We're not trying to do that. Trump was trying to do what? Make America great again.
And independent and
Yeah.
be able to
The
not
fact
have
that
to lean
that's
on everything.
the fact that that's controversial shows how far we have come with the children, because they raise the children. The old saying, I have a speech I've given in churches all over the country, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And they knew that, so they said, we got to go after the young people. We don't care about the old people. If we get them, we have tomorrow. And that's what's happened, and that's why we got to work to educate and pull the young back and teach them the truth so they can go, oh, I didn't realize that. Because if we continue to lose 80 to 90% of our young people like we've been doing, then
Yeah.
they're going to win.
Yeah. So the other answer to that, and this is my number one, what do? We have to pray. And I think
Yes.
spiritually, we are getting into a very good place. We realize, those of us who are understanding what is really happening, with big tech, with the government being fully controlled by the left, we can't do it. We can't organize. We don't have the resources humanly to be able to do this, but God does. And God will, we pray for truth. We pray His word. We open it up and we pray the things that He loves truth. He loves justice. He loves His people. He wants to help us. And He will help us, and He'll be with us. Even if we all go to concentration camps, He will be with us. But God is our only answer to be able to defeat this. He is the only answer. And not until we get on our knees and repent. He says, if my people will pray, if they will turn from their wicked ways, America is the number one porn consumer in the world. Abortion, we have so many things. We certainly do not deserve His mercy. But He loves us, and He is merciful. And we will plead for, Lord, the few of us, the millions of us out of 300 million here in America that love the Lord, please, for our sake, turn it around.
That's right.
Please let this voter fraud come out. Put the evil schemes back on the heads of those who wish us harm. And God is our answer. That's our number one thing.
In Psalm 119, King David was being afflicted and persecuted by his enemies. And he says in there, I forget the verses, it's in Psalm 119, he said, when I became afflicted, I turned back to God in His ways.
Yes.
And then in another verse later, in the same chapter, he says, he was so grateful for the affliction because it made him turn back to God's word. God is allowing this to happen now because we've become so lazy, because our life has been so easy. He has allowed this as a gift to us because He loves us. He wants us to realize, hey, I'm up here.
He wants us to
I'm in total
depend
control. He wants
on
us
Him.
dependent on Him when things are going good and when they're not going good. But unfortunately, when things are going so good, all of us have a tendency to not be quite as dependent on Him, not quite as much putting our faith in Him, because we don't need to. Yes, we do. We always do. But we're right now in a time period in our country where it's obvious, and I think He's done that to answer our prayers. When we say, God, help us, He said, okay, I will. I'm going to give you some affliction. So you'll be just so concerned, you're going to start praying more, you're going to start cleaning up your own life to be holy, because I am holy, I hate what is evil, and you're going to start trusting in me like you're supposed to, however things are going. So we need to do that. I mean, we read
And He gives us peace when
Yes.
we do that you can live in peace and joy in the midst of it. And so that's such an encouragement.
Yeah,
Well-
so that's what it is.
Well, Curtis, what you were saying about being in the Scripture and that being so important, I think, what we're talking about gives you that perspective.
That's right.
And you probably didn't know this about me, but I'm actually a minister as well. And, one thing that it just makes me think about, I was actually censored today. I put up a video, and it had nothing to do with the coronavirus. It was about Bernie Sanders tweeting that Trump was to blame for everything. And Facebook actually sent me a warning that if I posted this, I would be censored for spreading false information about vaccines. It had nothing to do with vaccines. I never even mentioned the coronavirus in it. But they told me that, and I sat back and I was angry about it, and I still am, but I was like, okay, but yeah, there were prophets in the Old Testament, because I do spend time in the Word, that were literally stoned to death for preaching that God loves them and wants them to come back and not worship other gods. And so adding that perspective and having that affliction, it really does change your perspective on the way that the world is going, and it motivates you to be like, okay, what I'm going through isn't that bad. We've survived King Herod and Nero and Domitian. I think we can handle a walking corpse in Kamala Harris. Like that will we'll be okay. We'll survive this.
That's right. No, the affliction makes us stronger. Look at the church in China. The more the Chinese communists just come in there and persecute them, the church is exploding. And so, again, maybe God's doing this so America can turn back to him on a great scale. Maybe it's going to get really bad, and that's going to make the church in America be so strong and such a light to people. When they see we have hope, when it doesn't look like there's any reason to have hope, they're going to go, how do you have hope? And we're going to I'll tell you how I have hope. And we'll be able to tell them about Jesus and give them real hope that is eternal. It's not based on who's in office. It's not based on what country you live in. It's not based on how much freedom you have. It's based on a relationship with the Creator. And so don't be discouraged. I know what I talk about all over the country is heavy to people. But when you have something you can't do anything about, that's when you are on your knees. Because I know someone that can do something about anything at any time for any reason, and he wants us to be talking to him and saying, God, I'm giving this to you. This is heavy on my heart, and there's really nothing I can do about some of these things. I'm giving those to you, and then I'm going to live like I should and do the things I can do, but trusting you are going to do what is best. And because he loves us, and he always does what is best, even when it doesn't appear to be that way.
Yeah. Well, as we close out, I would like to remind everyone to please go back to the homepage and sign up for our emails so that you can have this for tomorrow with the to-do list, some action items on there, things that you can do, like setting up the small groups, and we'll have more information on that and more details on how to do that. And then also be sure to go to agendaweekly.com, and thank you so much, Caleb, for producing this and being behind the scenes in all of this. Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate all that you're doing. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank
and
you.
Look forward to the next vlog, I should say,
That's right.
on Saturday. Thank you all so much for being with us. Happy New Year, and we just hope the Lord blesses your life wonderfully this week.
Tactics is a production of News Radio 1440 and Cumulus Media Montgomery. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Cumulus Media or our business partners. Graphics by Jessica Dawson. Video production by Jackson Dean. Broadcast studio provided by Faulkner University. Location studio provided by the Dalreda Church of Christ. Copyright 2020.